As a vicious female supporting character in a martial arts novel by Mary Sue, the top-ranked beauty on the battle power chart, Wen Yan, gradually gained her own consciousness. As she repeatedly rebelled against the laws of the world in the book, her strong sense of survival moved the Lord God and gave her a chance to travel. She entered a completely unfamiliar interstellar era, where she wrote her own life. Cultivating Immortal realm crosses the stars, fake waist few owners plus women disguised as men's clothing. Preface, very important. The front of this article is a slow plot, and the description of the female lead may not be too much. We hope for understanding. Not a traditional female powerhouse, focusing on a relaxed direction. Keywords of the novel. The almighty immortal lord in the interstellar world without pop-ups, the almighty immortal lord in the interstellar TXT complete collection download, and the almighty immortal lord in the latest chapter of Interstellar reading. Chapter 1. Freshman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Freshman. The author is not afraid of death, please inform in advance. I can write my own book as I want. Why must I listen to your roast? I have already written my own outline, can you deny me with just one sentence? If you don't like it, don't leave a message in the book review section, okay? I will delete it. If you don't like it, it doesn't mean others don't like it. If I insist on following your ideas, what's the point of writing this myself? I just love this kind of subject matter. What's wrong with it? I want to write about women dressing up as men, I want to write about the rise of Yang and the decline of Yin, I want to write about a group of little brothers, what do you care about? Don't like it? Walk slowly without delivery. I don't have that much time to spend with you. Originally, I didn't have enough time every day. If it weren't for the baby liking it, I would insist on doing more every day. Encoding is not easy, please cherish it. Wen Yan looked at the man in front of him, his eyebrows and eyes filled with coldness and determination, completely devoid of his usual gentleness and elegance. In his eyes, she looked like a disgusting mess of dirt. At that moment, she inexplicably felt that she was really wrong. Feeling the overwhelming killing intent emanating from him, his face, which had not experienced any emotional fluctuations for a long time, was now filled with confusion. A while ago, he was already seriously injured. Moreover, the other party was still his respected senior brother, so he didn't want to really put in all his strength to deal with him. He was forced to bear his anger and gradually resolve his swordsmanship moves. And the bending sword has already begun to crack, emitting a subtle, buzzing sound, as if in mourning. Wen Yan suppressed the urge to vomit in his throat, his cold gaze carrying a rare visible shattering. Senior brother, why is this? After she finished speaking, she could clearly feel that the opponent's attack suddenly became fierce. She didn't notice for a moment, and a sword aura cut through her entire right hand, instantly staining her white sleeve with blood. The late Moon Immortal has such great abilities that even now, he doesn't know what heinous crime he has committed. Wanyue Xianzuan is the name of Wen Yan, and the person in front of her is her senior brother Bai Mu. Since they started practicing at a young age, they have always referred to each other as siblings and have never called each other names, let alone fought like they do now. No, put it in a more appropriate way. Her senior brother wants to kill her. Wen Yan calmed his mind and saw the opportunity to distance himself from Bai Mu. Sorry for your ignorance, junior sister. I don't know what crime you have committed. She was already covered in injuries, with large patches of blood on top of her white clothes. The pain tore at every nerve, but it didn't show on her face. Bai Mu had already been blinded by anger, and now, upon hearing Wen Yan's words, she surprisingly calmed down. Oh, I don't know what crime I've committed. So let me, senior brother, remember for my junior sister. One is his bad character, which has caused his master to be locked down and unaware of life or death. Secondly, colluding with demons and releasing the great demons suppressed by the sect, they have not yet been fully captured, posing a threat to the common people. Thirdly, being ruthless and jealous that your disciple has higher talent than you, deceiving him to seek immortal grass in the desperate North Sea, and his life hanging on the line. Fourthly, the mind is dirty, and a large number of men with handsome bones are sought as cauldrons to cultivate evil skills. Fifth, harming fellow disciples. Wen Yan listened to the pile of criminal evidence that Bai Mu had told him, feeling particularly unfamiliar. She did something inexplicably for a period of time because she couldn't control herself from not doing it, but she didn't do what Bai Mu said. Since childhood, she has been known as a genius by others, devoting herself wholeheartedly to cultivation. Her path of cultivation is still a ruthless and selfless one. She didn't feel her inner turmoil, so she was certain that she hadn't done it and it wasn't her fault. It was her inner disciple Huaner who voluntarily requested to explore a secret realm in the desperate North Sea. Wen Yan knew that secret realm was not too dangerous for Huaner, so he let her go. Moreover, she secretly followed behind her to protect her throughout the journey, and only left when she saw Huaner enter the secret realm with her own eyes. And those teenagers, she has also seen them, but Huaner has said that they are all her friends. Senior brother, I didn't do these things. There's something fishy going on, I think we should investigate it carefully. Why let her bear the unfounded charges? She has always only cared about her cultivation, putting it first, and has no time at all. She also doesn't want to waste time doing those heinous things. And why can't she take it easy and do things that ruin her path? Everyone knows that she is not far from soaring. Wen Yan wanted to tell Bai Mu the truth of the matter, but his thoughts were in his mind and he couldn't speak up. It seems that her own past has become taboo, no matter how she wants to express it. Wen Yan finally felt something was wrong. Is it a forbidden technique? She had a premonition that it wasn't that simple. Is it the heavenly way or the law? Wen Yan's clear and bright eyes looked towards the gloomy sky, feeling lost for the first time in history. Junior sister is indeed unwilling to admit it. Let me, senior brother, act on behalf of heaven today and give an explanation to all the people in the world. When Wen Yan heard Bai Mu say the first half of the sentence, he was about to explain something, but when he heard the second half, he suddenly froze. To all the people of the world, can someone explain it? All the people in the world. Explain what? What does this mean? She cultivates immortality just to eliminate demons and defend the way, and to fight for all the people in the world. She followed her master's words before seclusion, saying that it is important to build a great road, but more importantly, to protect the safety of the world. This is her persistence, otherwise she wouldn't have chosen to be ruthless without hesitation. But now, why does senior brother say he wants to give an explanation to all the people in the world? What exactly did she do? Did you really do all the bad things as my senior brother said? But she really hasn't done anything. Isn't the world she's in real? Why does it seem like she and he are not in the same world? She's not even a villain. At this moment, Wen Yan felt as if all things in heaven and earth were slowly losing contact with her, causing her to feel a sense of loneliness that was so vast that she couldn't accommodate this moment. At this moment, the Tao heart completely collapses. She could clearly feel the cold sword piercing into her body, and then the primordial baby shattered and the primordial spirit was destroyed. It seems that the result should have been like this. If she dies, the world will be peaceful. The hunting wind was stirring, blowing in the usual neat white clothes of Wen Yan. Her hair was dancing, blocking her gradually blurred vision. I am somewhat unwilling to accept it also, her master, if you can't see her after master comes out of seclusion. What kind of thoughts should he have? But at this moment, Wen Yan had no consciousness to think about the future. At the moment she woke up again, Wen Yan found herself lying on a bed in a room made of special materials. She quickly looked around. The room was extremely simple and white, with only one bed and a small table inside. The small table seemed to be made of transparent marble. There is a very strange small box on top, made of materials that Wen Yan has never seen before. Wen Yan felt strange, and theoretically she had already gone completely insane. Why is she still conscious now? Sitting on the bed, being alert to the surroundings, more than 10 hours passed unconsciously. There was no movement, and Wen Yan couldn't figure it out. My gaze shifted to the small table, looking at the unknown little box, and finally got out of bed and walked to the table. At the moment she picked up the small box, a large amount of unfamiliar memories flooded her mind. In her memory, she is a malicious female supporting character from a storybook. She deceives her teacher and destroys her ancestors, colludes with the demon clan, behaves recklessly, is unreasonable, jealous, and indiscriminately kills innocent people. Destroy the relationship between the male and female protagonist Huan Er Bai Mu, poison the female protagonist, and destroy her roots and bones. Finally, she was seriously injured by other admirers of the female protagonist and died under the sword of Bai Mu. Her soul was shattered and she could never be reborn. That's also why, as the person with the highest cultivation in the sect, she died under the White Mu sword, whose strength was not as strong as hers. In her memory, she was designed to be seriously injured by the female protagonist's admirer, but in fact, she was seriously injured while trying to catch the ancient monster. Moreover, she didn't seem to be like the person in her memory, with a malicious heart that was so unbearable. Moreover, she was simply too foolish, completely unlike her. What is particularly noteworthy is that in her memory, she was not bad in the early stages, just like her, staying at her own mountain for cultivation all year round. Until she received her disciple Huaner, she became unlike herself and did all sorts of bad things, falling from the top of the clouds to the bottom. Just as Wen Yan was still thinking, a mechanical and stiff sound suddenly came from the room. ZZ. Discovered. Conscious paper characters. ZH, data. Data collection, data processing. Drop by drop. Drop by drop. Dot. Who? Wen Yan spoke out sharply, with a wary look in his eyes. He looked around but didn't notice anyone. The original novel data is abnormal. Error, the paper character's attempt to change failed. Change. Failed. Failure. Failure. Drop. Paper characters attempting to change, repeatedly failing. DD failed. Mastering independent consciousness. The next second, Wen Yan saw the white wall in front of him suddenly covered with a large red or green font, and his ears were filled with cold mechanical sounds. Wen Yan was shocked in her heart, she had no idea what the scene before her was. Now the red font is the largest and most obvious, which makes people feel uneasy when they look at it. The font on the wall is constantly increasing, all she knows, but when they come together, she doesn't know what it means. While red fonts occupy a large area of the wall, small green fonts are also constantly appearing. The two are competing with each other, visible to the naked eye, and the green font may be losing. Although Wen Yan didn't know what it meant, she still stared tightly at the wall, not missing a word. Subconsciously, she knew that these fonts were describing her. Conscious paper characters. Rare. Disrupt the rules of order. Erase. Erase. Give life a chance. After a long time, the red characters quickly faded and were replaced by green characters. The cold mechanical sound in my ears also turned into a sweet and gentle female voice. The headquarters of the main god system is at your service. The malicious female supporting character Wen Yan in I Love in the Immortal Realm does not succumb to the original plot, and has repeatedly rebelled against the original plot but is limited by world laws. After intense discussion and considering the scarcity of paper characters that can generate self-awareness, and the Lord God's admiration for your perseverance and efforts, we now offer you an opportunity to travel through other worlds. Congratulations, Wen Yan. D. Transfer begins. Wen Yan hadn't digested all the information for a while, but the next second, she noticed that her body was gradually becoming transparent. I roughly understand. She is about to gain a new life, one that is no longer bound by the laws of heaven. No need to soar. But he changed his fate one step ahead of schedule. Put on a bad writing style. P.S. Because I have read many interstellar novels, sometimes I accidentally use one or two words, and some of my friends may think it's a bit similar to wearing a man. I know what you're saying, but the female lead grew up in a military academy and met many friends along the way. I agree with this. But I really like this type of novel, but I can't find a few online, so I want to write it myself, which is also my original intention for writing this novel. I assure the babies that all the plot is based on their own thoughts, written with care, and will not be plagiarized. Setting something like this, I hope everyone can forgive me. If you like it, you can continue to watch, but it's okay if you don't like it. I accept everyone's advice and love you all. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Young Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Young Master Phantom Star, main urban area. The Wen family villa estate is no longer as lively as before, with long neglected gardens and wild grass growing freely. All roads are covered with thick layers of fallen leaves, appearing desolate and desolate. The main design of the entire estate is modeled after ancient garden buildings, with an antique flavor. It is the splendor of a garden full of flowers and lush grass, the elegance of emerald bamboo and fallen leaves, the harmony of fish playing with green waves and dense flowers, and the classical beauty of lotus blooming in the water. Like a rainy season girl holding an umbrella, with gentle steps on the waves, full of poetic and picturesque ancient charm. Family buildings like the Wen family are not found on other planets. According to records, hundreds of years ago, an ancestor of the Wen family purchased the only remaining historical painting in the database about the origin of human origin, the blue star, for a sky-high price. The main residence of the Wen family was renovated according to the style on the painting. Blue star. A planet that has permanently disappeared in the long river of history, is an existence that can no longer be queried by human data. Since the blue star was polluted and humans landed on another planet, it has been gradually forgotten by humans. As when Shinjo drove his floating car back from the federal government building and passed through the entire estate, he didn't even frown at the desolate scene, and his eyes were indifferent. It seems that I have long been accustomed to the current scene. But who could have imagined that 2 years ago, Wenjiazwang Garden was a place that everyone in the entire star region longed for and admired. The Wen family represents power, status, strength, and background, and is a three-part presence that the entire Federation and major groups must yield to. And such an existence, with just a sudden change, can easily become a down-and-out family. Then it is constantly elevated by people, becoming a place for different forces in the Federation to gain benefits. And such a change was only due to the sacrifice of Major General Wen Lan, the first federal superwalker and the first war god. When Shinjo returned to the main courtyard of the Wen family and passed through the safety protection cover covered on its exterior wall, creating a completely different view from the outside. The flowers and plants remain clean and tidy, with no trace of desolation. The infrared cameras hidden in different corners instantly scan towards Wen Shinjo for identity recognition. If the genetic data does not match, the main hospital system will activate the thermal weapon within 0.000001 seconds to eliminate the intruder. The thermal weapon installed in the main courtyard of the Wen family is currently the most powerful X.01 electromagnetic cannon on the market. It is fast, precise, and highly destructive, with a small size and light weight. The heat generated during activation is difficult to detect by the thermal sensor, causing the enemy to die instantly. Even if this cannot eliminate the intruder, there are still traps in the entire main hospital system that can successfully evade all the traps, and so far there is no one. Technology is constantly advancing, and the main hospital system is also constantly upgrading. Not to mention, the Wen family's main hospital system is an artificial intelligence with human consciousness. Master, today the young master has completed all the projects and actions you specified in one day. He has completed the 17 styles of Wen's 72 styles, which is 9 styles faster than when Wen Lan was the same age when Qinzhou turned around the end of the corridor and looked at Wen Yan in a concave posture in the backyard. Listening to the report from Jingzhe, his face remained expressionless for a moment. He didn't answer Jingzhe's words, just looked at Xiao Wen Yan who was working hard in the courtyard, with a look of helplessness in his eyes. In the main urban area of Emperor Star, a 2-year-old baby should have been lying in the arms of her parents and acting cute. She only needs to eat, sleep, and play every day, without having to work so hard to cultivate. But Wen Yan is not. She is a girl, but in order to protect the achievements and honor of her parents, he had to make her dress up as a boy, and even the identity gender entered for her in Jingzhe's system database was male. Although Jingzhe is an intelligent agent with human consciousness and will not reveal this secret, there are always so many accidents that he has to be cautious. In this way, Wen Yan, the legitimate granddaughter of Wen Qinzhou, became the legitimate grandson and the young master of the Wen family. It's not that girls cannot achieve merit, but that boys have an advantage in competition, which is reflected in resource allocation. Wen Yan's parents died in battle on the battlefield. On the day the martyrs brought her back, the small blanket that wrapped around her was completely stained with blood. He didn't know who left the blood, maybe it belonged to her parents, maybe it belonged to the dead, or maybe it belonged to an outsider, some of whom also had red blood. When Qinzhou knew she had done something wrong, and she shouldn't have pinned all her hopes on Xiao Wenyan. But when he faced various legions and even collateral relatives, their hypocritical and shameful greedy faces were disgusting and hateful. He was unwilling and casually handed over the merits earned by his son and daughter-in-law's life to those people. He's getting old, he can't compete anymore. So he came up with such a terrible solution only after learning about Wen Yan's genetic talent. The federal system stipulates that the merits of parents can only be inherited for a lifetime as sons. Although daughters can also inherit them, they must be transferred to their husband's family after marriage. Although Interstellar advocates for equality for all, it cannot avoid some unequal institutional regulations. The inheritance of military achievements is so unequal, but it was not like this before. This regulation was only promulgated 100 years ago. When Qinzhou will believe that one day, such institutional regulations will no longer exist and will be restored to the past. Because of this, he could not witness his granddaughter becoming a member of the upper-class society, a bargaining chip for the interests of high-ranking officials and nobles, and could only choose a male identity for her. He knew that it was extremely unfair to speak to Wen Yan. But he really has no choice, nor can he do anything about it. In fact, Wen Yan only needs to guard the achievements left by the Wen family's foundation and her parents in this lifetime, and she won't have to worry about it for the rest of her life. He didn't expect her to achieve anything great, he was willing to become a playboy. However, as Wen Yan grew up, he learned to walk and speak before reaching the age of 1. He became more sensible and understood many things when he was just over a year old. She is working so hard to cultivate now only because one day when she was 1 year old, she suddenly asked him a question. "Grandpa, you're very tired." "Right." At that moment, Wen Qinzhou looked at the small ball in front of him and nodded slowly and heavily. He was still self-deprecating at that time, how old he was, and even complained to a small group. Since then, Wen Yan began to proactively ask him how to cultivate, how to become stronger, and how to adapt to this era. At first, he thought it was just a child asking boring questions to pass the time, after all, she didn't have any other children to play with. As a result, this practice lasted for over a year. She doesn't seem like a normal baby at all. When she's hungry, she doesn't cry or fuss and goes to find food on her own. When she's tired, she obediently washes and sleeps without needing anyone to take care of her. So he dares not to go home all day, when Yan really doesn't need his worry at all. But looking at the little girl in front of him, he would also wonder if she would be lonely. It should have been a long time since he didn't drive away so many servants. Now there are only trustworthy Wen family warriors and butlers in the Wen family villa estate, as well as a couple. The rest are all robots. There are also servants who cannot be trusted, but he is worried that these servants will be threatened and intimidated by the group, causing unnecessary personal injury to them and causing him unnecessary trouble. Xiaochuanzi probably doesn't like playing with robots very much. After all, except for Jingxia, other artificial intelligence agents are too low level and can only run according to the operating program, and Xiaochuanzi has not talked much to the butler or husband and wife. So, it created a situation where Wen Yan was always alone from beginning to end. In fact, he is not really unable to supervise those eyeliner. He is always blamed for his thoughtfulness. At the beginning, he didn't bother to check the eyeliner arranged by other forces one by one, so he dismissed all the servants who were not in the main courtyard. This has resulted in the fact that apart from the main courtyard, other places have not been cleaned for over 2 years. In fact, he is too lazy to send robots to clean, and thinks that after being abandoned, it is quite natural and beautiful. Wen Qinzhou frowned and looked at Wen Yan in the courtyard, with a stern expression between his eyebrows and eyes. Will this cause emotional loss for his granddaughter? She no longer likes to talk. But how can children not like to talk? This is not a normal situation, is it? At that time, Wen Lan had endless words and endless troubles every day until night. Wen Yan discovered him from the moment he appeared in Wen Qinzhou, but she focused all her attention on the content she learned today. It's not very difficult, it's a technique for stretching muscles and muscles. To broaden the meridians and make it easier, denser, and faster for qi to enter the body. Providing a foundation for future cultivation is like building a house. She is currently building a foundation, and the stronger the foundation, the higher the house can be built in the future. After several more moves, Wen Yan slowly finished. After adjusting my breathing, I looked at Wen Qinzhou. Grandpa, I'm fine now. Wen Qinzhou, listening to his granddaughter's brief words, actually understood her meaning. I'm fine, do you have anything to say? I went to eat without it. Rich people generally do not drink nutritional supplements because interstellar radiation is strong and there is very little land available for growing food. Ordinary family meals have become unimaginably expensive items for the poor in this era. Wen Qinzhou frowned and smiled, it's okay. I was thinking that other children have friends, but you're alone. Would you feel lonely? I'm still thinking, will you become a little facial paralysis, not laughing much every day, not lively or active at all? Grandpa, with the awakening of insects, I'm not alone. If I don't like to laugh, maybe it's because my smile is too high. Wen Yan thought, is this vocabulary correct? She has been in this world for 2 years and has been studying the knowledge of this world seriously for these 2 years. But due to lack of authority and the fact that Jingxia is now providing her with only parenting knowledge, what she has learned is only very basic things, such as daily greetings and approximate historical background. In summary, none of them are particularly useful. After all, she is not really a little baby. Who could have thought that within this body, there was actually a cultivator who had lived for hundreds of years and stepped into the divine realm? She is indeed not alone. In her past life, her family was ruined early on, and it was her master who took her back home. She listens to her master very much and always remembers his teachings. To practice hard. Often, one can stay in seclusion for as little as a few months or as much as several years, and there is no one to accompany during the days of cultivation. She has long been used to it, so she is not alone. Not good at speaking and not showing a smile is because I have cultivated the ruthless way, have a thorough understanding of many things, and have become accustomed to not expressing my inner thoughts on my face. Okay, let's go eat. Wen Qinzhou touched her head. Rest early so that you can grow taller. Okay. Goodbye, Grandpa. A growth-oriented female lead, the timeline may be slower, and the plot may also be slower now. Don't rush, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. Future. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Future. When Chinzhou watched as Wen Yan left. The small one is not as tall as the housekeeping robot passing by. But when he thought of the serious expression on Xia Chuanzi's face, he looked somewhat like an adult. He couldn't help but laugh. It's already quite cute. Wen Yan's mind was spinning rapidly all the way, and from the moment she was given real life, she decided to live a good life. On the day she arrived in this world, the first person she saw when she opened her eyes was a woman with extremely delicate facial features and bones. Standing next to her was a man with an equally handsome face, who should be her parents in this world. In the next moment, the scene changed and both of them put on battle robes and boarded the mech. At that time, her vision was limited and she only knew where they were on the battlefield. Wen Yan didn't understand why her blood-related mother, who had just given birth and had not yet fully recovered, came to such a dangerous place. Then Wen Yan felt that her position was constantly changing. She was protected inside the protective cabin and couldn't see the outside scene, only knowing that the battle was intense. She stayed quietly in the protective cabin without making any noise, calmly analyzing the situation of the war. After an unknown amount of time, victory was right in front of her, but Wen Yan heard her parents talking. Is there an enemy inside line? No, it's a traitor. We can't leave. Once we withdraw our troops, the first line of defense of the Federation will collapse, and foreigners will invade in large numbers. Hanley, take your child and leave quickly. What are you going to do? With me around, I can help you procrastinate. You can't. Leave me behind again. But our children. Although Wen Yan did not understand what traitor meant, he could still guess that the current situation was severe. The next thing Wen Yan didn't know, the strong drowsiness plunged her into darkness. Day and night alternate constantly, and the person holding her is also constantly changing. Maybe she was dead, maybe she was caught, the bloodstains on her blanket told everything. She didn't know how long she had walked from the War Star to the Peace Star, only to wake up in the darkness and find that the rust, blood, and smoke in the air had disappeared, replaced by fresh air and the breath of life. Later on, she safely returned to the home of the Emperor Star-Lord, and the people also knew that the Union had won and that a 100-year peace treaty had been signed with the foreign people. Knowing that the enemy's inhumane use of the illegal weapon Pluto, which is not allowed in the Interstellar Treaty, is now known. That is a super hydrogen bomb the size of a star. When it explodes, it is equivalent to a billion-ton hydrogen bomb exploding, and the resulting fireball may burn for a few minutes. Its power is enough to destroy all celestial bodies in a small galaxy. Not to mention the fragile lives living on these celestial bodies. It targets the lives of billions of people, including soldiers and innocent civilians. Major General Wen Lan and his wife, at the cost of consuming their vitality, unlocked the energy deadlock that every superhero would never want to unlock in their lifetime, creating a small black hole that instantly devoured the already ignited Pluto. The two disappeared without a trace, and the Federal Army searched for several months without finding any signs of their lives. Eventually, they were declared dead. Major General Wen Lan, an idol of the people of the entire Federation, is a member of the Federation's God-level mecha division at a young age, and also the first existence to break through the Super 10 levels. He is the recognized god of war by all citizens, but the fact is that God has fallen. Although this war was won, it was bought with the passing of a war god, tens of millions of soldiers exchanged with fresh blood, it was exchanged for the destruction of countless people's homes. This is a fact that all federal citizens cannot accept. This is also a heavy blow for a country. How many years will it take to cultivate such a genius again? No one can give a definite answer. The bad news came, and the whole country was immersed in sadness. The victory in this 6-year war should have been joyful, but the cost is simply too great. Hunting with flags, drums and thunder, the teacher of tigers and wolves, as pointed out by the soldiers, they are invincible, conquering everything is invincible, in a back-to-back battle, one is killed and reborn. That battle was historically known as the War of the Meteorous Gods, and was later recognized as the National Memorial Day by the public. The names of Wen Yan and Yen Hanley are engraved on the National Honor Tower. Those who can be carved into the Tower of Honor are all outstanding individuals who have made great contributions to the country and the people. The name engraved on the Honor Tower, but no one is alive wearing a pale silver wedding dress. The meteor shower added a touch of brilliance, joy, and warmth to the night sky of that day. The fleeting meteor shower also brought infinite imagination and endless loneliness to people. Wen Yan did not hear any news about the search for the traitor for a long time later. It was not only Wen Yan and Yen Hanley who knew about the traitor when the federal government publicly announced the news. But the federal leadership did not take any action, not even revealing any of this news, and Wen Yan also heard that anyone who knew about this news had been secretly resolved. It seems that the death of parents is not that simple, there must be some hidden activities behind the scenes by federal officials. But she cannot know, nor can she search. To be honest, she doesn't feel much obligation to seek the truth. She has no emotional attachment to her parents who have only met once. She was grateful that they had put in a lot of effort to safely send her back, that's all. Whether she is ruthless or cold. All the things in her past life left her with little emotional resonance with the outside world. Her guiding principle has always been to protect the world, so she constantly strives to provide assistance to the world as much as possible. With so much visible, she couldn't give too much emotion, otherwise she would be tormented, her Dao heart unstable, and she might accidentally go crazy. Because the evil she sees is countless times more than the good she sees. But when she watches Wen Qinzhou being threatened and oppressed by various legions and financial groups, she also worries for him, afraid that this old man cannot withstand such pressure. Even though Wen Lan's military achievements are remarkable and respected by the world, he is nothing in the face of interests. Although she has only been with him for more than 2 years, Wen Qinzhou's kindness and love towards her have never been felt by her since her master closed down, so she does not want to see Wen Qinzhou encounter any mishaps. Wen Yan also loves him, respects him, and truly regards him as a family member. Now she exists like her master. Those high-ranking officers of the army and leaders of the foundation are accustomed to acting. To show filial piety to the elderly and the young, leaving a false impression that they are taking good care of General Wen Lan's family, and constantly oppressing Wen Qinzhou internally, he was asked to hand over most of the shares of the Wen family consortium. Even a child as young as Wen Yan was not spared. In the last visit to comfort her, several 7- or 8-year-old children beat her to threaten Wen Qinzhou. Of course, she was not beaten in the end, but Wen Qinzhou didn't say a word for her, but she didn't hate Wen Qinzhou at all. Wen Yan only felt sorry for this elderly person who was already over 400 years old. The average age in interstellar space is 320 years old, and the maximum lifespan can reach over 480 years. At this age, Wen Qinzhou can be considered half of his body lying in a coffin. She once asked him, "Why do you still insist?" He said, "Xiao Wen Yan, because the Wen family has been passed down from generation to generation, I don't want the Wen family to fall into my hands." Moreover, 80% of the money Wen earns each year is used to aid the marginal stars, where planetary wars are frequent and many children are homeless. Children who can be hit and lose their lives by incoming bullets anytime and anywhere are not as good as those who live on garbage stars. I can't do much, I can only try my best to ensure their safety. The military's weapons and equipment are also very outdated, and medical facilities cannot keep up. Although our era is not peaceful, the vast majority of federal officials only know about interests, rights, and status. In their eyes, the lives of citizens are even lower than ants, so if I don't persist, the army and citizens of the marginal star will be cold, and this country will not be far from destruction. The country is such a sacred and beautiful vocabulary. I have to protect it. So I don't want to see it go extinct one day. Xiao Wen Yan, do you understand? It's okay, if you don't understand now, you will understand in the future. I'm such a fool, I'm telling you these things to a baby doll, Wen Yan looked at him seriously at that moment, and at that moment, Wen Qinzhou's usually smiling face was filled with sadness and sorrow. Grandpa, I understand. He paused slightly, with a smile in his eyes. You little bun, your milk hasn't even broken yet. What do you understand? He paused and looked at the floating cloud tree in the courtyard. Did you see it? Your father planted it himself. The leaves of the floating cloud tree are oval-shaped and pure white, because when the wind blows, it will float freely like clouds. It is our national tree, meaning that no matter where you are on a long journey, wherever there are clouds, that is home. I told Lanner the same way back then, but he never came back. Wen Yendi saw infinite loneliness and helplessness in this old man, although Wen Qinzhou had been pretending not to care. However, it is a fact that white-haired people give black-haired people away. At that moment, deep within her soul resonated, sending shivers. She decided that when she first came to this world, she only wanted to live for herself, but now she also wants to live for him. That's why she made the most of her time to practice. She had to give him a satisfactory answer before he was still healthy and healthy. Anyone who harms him cannot escape. Little master, what are you thinking? Is the milk temperature not good today? In the past, you used to finish your third bottle of milk and a basket of small buns, but today you haven't finished your last bottle of milk and haven't touched any of the buns. Suyu stared at Wen Yan, who was staring blankly. Although he was very cute, he still had to interrupt his thoughts. Cough, Grandma Su, I'm thinking about something. I'm sorry. Wen Yan regained consciousness, smashing her small mouth and shaking the bottle. No wonder she couldn't suck on the milk. It turned out that the pacifier had already been flattened by her. This thing called milk bottle is very strange to Wen Yan every time she uses it. She gently frowned and her expression was slightly serious. Watching Wen Yan on the side, Suyu looked at her expression and secretly smiled. Little Tuanzi is clearly panting with milk, but he is so serious like an adult. The contrast is really too great. Who wouldn't be confused after reading this? Taking advantage of Wen Yan's lack of attention, she quietly opened the micro camera and captured this scene. Not long after, Wen Qinzhou's optical brain received this video. Later, Wen Qinzhou added this video to a video collection, which was full of videos about Wen Yan, including eating, reading, practicing, and daydreaming Wen Yan. Grandpa, what are you doing? Wen Qinzhou. Precious video of Big Boss's childhood period. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Breakthroughs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Breakthroughs. A white horse passes by a gap, time flies by, and 4 years of time are fleeting. Wen Qinzhou looked at Wen Yan, who was taking a medicinal bath. Compared to 4 years ago, Xiao Tuanzi's facial features were more three-dimensional, and the baby fat on his face was no longer very obvious. She perfectly inherited her parents' genes, and now it can be seen that her future appearance will not be bad. But in this era, without strong strength, an overly dazzling appearance is very dangerous. Wen Qinzhou, however, was not worried. Wen Yan's progress in recent years has been very rapid, even faster than her father's cultivation speed. As the saying goes, the waves behind the Yangtze River push the waves before, and each wave is higher than the other. However, Wen Yan's wave has already landed his father on the beach. To belittle her father, in front of Wen Yan, Wen Lan's genetic talent and cultivation speed are completely inadequate. Wen Qinzhou still has enough time, energy, and ability to protect her from growing up, so he is not in a hurry. Feeling the temperature of the medicinal bath rapidly dropping in an instant, Wen Qinzhou knew that Wen Yan had successfully broken through. He condensed his breath and threw a small ball of light at the medicine bucket, and then the already cold medicine bath emitted hot air again. Every time it's like this, the medicinal properties haven't been fully absorbed yet, and Xiao Wen Yan broke through. It's really a waste. This bucket of medicine is so valuable, it's worth billions of stars. Wen Qinzhou had a heart-wrenching expression on his face, but in fact, he was extremely happy inside. The last breakthrough by Wen Yan took 8 hours, while this breakthrough only took 3 hours. The shorter the breakthrough time, the smoother and the better the foundation. With 1 hour left, let her slowly absorb and digest it on her own. Wen Qinzhou walked briskly, leaving with a happy expression on his face, and did not forget to send a message to Suyu. Make more delicious food in the evening to supplement the young master. Especially stir-fried shredded pork with green peppers, spicy chicken legs, and milk buns. The young master loves to eat, so prepare more. In the evening, the sunset cast its final glow on the sky, setting a golden border on the already darkened clouds. The evening breeze passed through the hall, shaking the wind chimes at the corner of the pavilion, emitting a series of crisp sounds. At the moment when Yan opened his eyes, he thought he was staying in the secluded cave of his past life. This feeling was really like a breakthrough in his cultivation level. The function of medicinal baths is to strengthen meridians and protect the body from dark damage under the erosion of a large amount of magical energy. It is mainly used for physical breakthroughs. Wen Yan took a deep breath, then slowly exhaled before getting up and leaving the medicine bucket, entering the bathroom for a brief rinse. She felt an inexplicable amount of phantom energy surging in her body, and used a trace of spiritual power to walk around the meridian network, only to find that the meridians had slightly expanded. This indicates the ability to withstand more erosion of illusion and accumulate more illusion in the body. Speaking of which, it is also very magical. While exploring the interstellar space, humans discovered this particularly magical gas. It does not participate in the composition of any substance, and even the elements that make up this gas do not combine with other elements, let alone participate in chemical reactions. However, this seemingly useless gas can optimize human genes and improve physical fitness, greatly compensating for the lack of physical strength in humans and narrowing the gap in strength with outsiders. In addition to physical techniques, this gas can also amplify the most abundant attribute of a person's 5 elements and materialize it. Gold, wood, water, fire, and earth, each person's body will always have the strongest attribute that will be displayed from their genes. Of course, there are also special attributes that exist, not just referring to the 5 elements of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. The genetic attributes discovered today are countless, but they are all uniformly divided into 5 categories. Chicken ribs, average, rare, and top-notch. The Interstellar Academy of Science and Technology has been studying this gas for hundreds of years, but has not come up with a reason. Finally, it was classified as an inert gas and named phantom gas. Wen Yan felt that this was too similar to the spiritual energy of the cultivation world, but their explanations were different. In scientific terms, phantom gas is a gas that can be collected and all its physical and chemical properties can be understood. And spiritual energy is not enough. Their era did not focus on science, they only studied metaphysics, so there is no need to understand the principles of spiritual energy. In fact, I don't understand it either. If everyone were to explore the principles of spiritual energy, there would be no time for cultivation. When Wen Yan was 4 years old, it was determined that the most abundant attribute in her body was water. She was a bit shocked, after all, her spiritual root in her previous life was a mutated thunder spiritual root, not a water spiritual root. However, upon reflection, she now has real life and her body is different, so it is normal for her spiritual roots to be different. At that time, Wen Qinzhou looked at Wen Yan in a daze, thinking that he didn't really like the water attribute because there were almost no strong water attributes in the interstellar space. It seems that in everyone's perception, water is the source of life and has no destructive power. Wen Qinzhou told Wen Yan. Everyone in the interstellar space thinks that water is the most useless. When a child's genetic attribute is determined to be water, no matter how excellent and outstanding their other talents are, they cannot change their fate of being abandoned. In this era, what is needed are top-notch geniuses, with physical skills, mental power, and the ability to control mechs, all requiring an A level or above. And genetic attributes must be as lethal as fire, or as healing and supportive as wood. Generally, the federal government does not pay much attention to cultivating children. Genius with grades above A are not lacking in today's densely populated interstellar world, and the resources needed to cultivate talents are enormous. Therefore, major groups will abandon those who are not so outstanding in a certain aspect. This elimination method is very common in interstellar space. However, ordinary citizens are not that concerned. They can obtain necessities of life through their own labor, and they do not necessarily want to be favored and cultivated by the federal government. After all, not everyone wants to go to the battlefield, except for the citizens of the Edge Star. They are the people of the entire planet who will join the army. Wen Yan, actually, I want to say that I think water is the most unique. Water, sometimes gentle and peaceful, sometimes roaring and surging, this is the personality of water. The grandeur of waterfalls, the surging waves, the ding-dong of springs, the babbling of small rivers, the patter of light rain, and the grandeur of heavy rain are all eternal day and night. And the form of water is also variable, it can form fog, air, ice, and rain, it can be tangible or intangible, it can be solid, liquid, or gas. No one transforms water into other forms because water has been defined as the most useless attribute. Children with water attributes give up their cultivation early on and instead focus on using their other talents, such as physical and mental abilities. If these two talents are excellent, they can focus on learning mecha. As long as you master the transformation of different forms of water, I believe even your father will not be able to defeat him. Of course, if he is still alive, in fact, I dare say that we have an old ancestor who is a strong water attribute and the only one who is used to pretending to be a pig and eating tigers, so outsiders do not know this secret. Fortunately, he left behind the methods for cultivating water attributes, all of which were collected in a light brain disk. Actually, I don't want to give it to you. Let me see how far you can cultivate it first. So, don't think water is bad, I believe you can do it well. And this can just provide cover for you, not to be monitored by some high-level officials in the federal government. Even if you are monitored, you are not afraid. Your grandfather and I, this old bone, still have some use. See, those legions and consortia have been with me for over 3 years, and in the end they returned empty-handed. They can't do anything about me. Wen Yan's memory returns to reality. Dinner. Wen Yan eats elegantly but not slowly. The energy consumed during today's breakthrough was a bit high, and she was already hungry. In addition, Wen Qinzhou specifically instructed Suyu that all the dishes tonight are what Wen Yan loves to eat. No one can resist the temptation of delicious food, and Wen Yan is no exception. Many times she has been thinking about why in her past life, she no longer indulged in the desire for food and missed out on so many delicious foods. If it weren't for your usual large appetite, your 9 bowls of rice tonight would really scare me, haha. Wen Qinzhou watched as Wen Yan finally put down his chopsticks and couldn't help but tease her. After listening to Wen Qinzhou's words, Wen Yan felt a rare embarrassment. In fact, she could have another bowl to eat. But when she saw that she had eaten up all the dishes, she could only give up. Of course she wouldn't say that. Moreover, she knew that Wen Qinzhou had not touched her chopsticks at all, and almost all the food had entered her stomach. This thought made her even more embarrassed. But the little face remained expressionless, still with that serious expression. Wen Yan did not realize that during the time spent with Wen Qinzhou, her personality was gradually changing unconsciously. How to put it? Now she has become more human, able to understand how to accept and express love. She is gradually distancing herself from the once cold and heartless self who became indifferent due to practicing the ruthless path. Wen Yan, how do you feel after breaking through today? Wen Yan didn't speak, but spread out his palm and condensed a small water column in his palm, with a thin layer of ice floating around the periphery of the small water column. You have already figured out the first form of change, and looking at the size of this water column and the thickness of the ice, the harvest is not small. Wen Qinzhou looked happy. Yes, Grandpa. My physical skills have improved, and I have suddenly moved from the second stage of entering the micro level to the sixth stage of entering the micro level. I think we can give it a try with the Wen's 40 styles, he said again, spiritual power. I don't feel like there's any growth. There should be some growth. After listening to Wen Yan's summary, Wen Qinzhou was both excited, proud, and envious. Excitedly, Wen Yan broke through the fourth paragraph directly. I am proud that this is his granddaughter. What I envy is that if he had such great talent back then, he wouldn't have received so much love education. He used to spend a whole year working from the second stage to the sixth stage. Wen Lan's talent was better than him, but it also took half a year. Everyone else broke through step by step, while Wen Yan broke through the fourth stage all at once. Fortunately, it's his granddaughter, otherwise he would go crazy with jealousy. You have given me so many surprises, child. Your mental strength has already surpassed SSS, and it's normal for you not to feel it growing a bit. There's no problem. Don't worry about physical skills, take it slow. It's not short of time anyway. Wen Qinzhou put down the dishes and was very happy. A few days later, there was a banquet hosted by the federal president, who requested to bring his family to attend. I can't shirk it, so I can only accept it. Don't worry, just treat it like a trip. After the banquet, there may be unexpected events to attend. But don't worry either. Okay, Grandpa, I understand. It's getting late, Grandpa should rest early. Good night. After Wen Yan finished speaking, he turned around and left his seat, then walked towards his own yard. I have been busy reviewing for mid-term exams recently, and I also have to do experiments. The update speed is not fast, please understand asterisk, end of this chapter. Chapter 5. Wen's 72 Equations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Wen's 72 Equations, good night. Wen Yan's figure gradually disappeared from Wen Qinzhou's vision. He looked at the busy domestic robot and called out to startle insects in his mind. Jingzhe, let me measure the young master's figure. Attending a banquet like this can't be too simple. A good homeowner. By the way, master, the young master just asked me to tell you not to go to the outer courtyard for a breeze late at night, it's getting cold. You told Xiao Wenyan, traitor. That's also my master. Jingzhe's usual calm voice now carried a hint of anger. Originally, at such an old age, you still feel as strong and sturdy as when you were young. Since I was young, I have always been a worry-free person. If my father knew about it, there would be a scolding, and I am also concerned about you. I grew up with you. Anyway, it can be considered as your brother. Alright, I'm ignoring you. Hurry up and go back to sleep. I don't say good night to you like the young master did. Goodbye. After listening to Jingzhe's words, Wen Qinzhou burst out laughing and said, so my temper is still so big. Alright, I know now. Go back to sleep. The sound of Jingzhe disappeared, and as the wind blew, the leaves of the floating cloud tree in the courtyard made a slight clatter sound, making the main courtyard even quieter. At this moment, Wen Qinzhou fell silent. Yes, he is also a brother who grew up with him, and his granddaughter from Wen Qinzhou is also his granddaughter who was startled by insects. He is worrying about something. In fact, having an intelligent agent brother with human consciousness feels quite good, but he is too nervous. However, his father once said that Jingzhe still has some emotional flaws and is prone to accidents. The cost of accidents is to destroy the entire human civilization. His father asked him to be wary of Jingzhe. If one day, he would definitely personally destroy him. His father told him the method of destruction. I really don't expect such a day. After all, it has been with him for over 400 years. A new day has begun. Wen Yan's daily life now is about cultivation, and he regards reading and studying as relaxation. Wen Qinzhou sighed, there are many talented people in this world, but there are not many people like Wen Yan who are talented and particularly hardworking. Nowadays, to a large extent, Wen Yan has been ahead of his peers for 7 or 8 years, and compared to some adults, he is also quite outstanding. Now, Wen Qinzhou is sitting in the pavilion, with top-quality tea and pastries on the stone table, and strands of fragrance wafting out from the incense burner. Wen Qinzhou sipped his tea and looked at Wen Yan performing difficult movements in the courtyard, feeling very happy. "You really enjoy it," Jingzhe said. "Why, do you also want to try the tea I just bought?" "No, I can't drink it in my stomach, it's a waste of this good tea. I don't want to use my body at the moment. Some of its parts are aging, and I need to find time to repair them properly." Wen Qinzhou shook his head after listening and said, "Your repair time has been too long. As far as I know, it has been broken for several years, right? This procrastination problem needs to be improved. As an intelligent agent, you still have procrastination, which is quite rare. What's wrong with the intelligent agent? I'm the only intelligent agent in the entire universe with human consciousness, can't I still be unique?" Jingzhe finished speaking and didn't want to continue arguing with Wen Qinzhou, otherwise its terminal would be angry and data would be disrupted again. It decisively shut down its microphone and refocused its attention on Wen Yan. It's still the young master who makes people feel comfortable. Why is the gap between people so big? Jingzhe believes that this issue is worth exploring, as it can help make it more like a human. Wen Yan did not pay attention to everything outside. She focused her energy on guiding the phantom energy in her body to repeatedly flush her meridians, while also performing complex and difficult movements. 2 years ago, she used her previous life's mental cultivation techniques to open various acupoints throughout her body, so now she can quickly absorb illusion energy. Otherwise, she wouldn't have quickly practiced Wen's 72 movements to 39 movements. The 72 movements of the Wen family are actually a secret practice passed down by the head of the Wen family. It is divided into 4 stages. The first stage is from type 1 to type 30, during which the body's strength and toughness are at the primary level, and ordinary cold weapons are no longer able to cause damage, phase 2. From type 31 to type 50, they are still at the beginner level and can resist thermal weapons such as laser guns, electromagnetic guns, infrared ray nets, etc. Which are no longer enough to be feared, stage 3. From type 51 to type 66, intermediate, immune to all physical damage, stage 4. From type 67 to type 72, this stage is completely different from the previous 3 stages. But Wen Yan doesn't know what his ability is to reach the 4th stage, because Wen Qinzhou said that so far, no one has broken through to the 4th stage. The obstacles to breaking through the 4th stage are really too great. The Wen 70.2 movements are not the same as other exercises. Other body training secrets rely on building up the body bit by bit, while Wen 72 moves not only exercise the body, but also use illusion energy to flush meridians and strengthen the toughness and strength of blood vessels throughout the body during cultivation. This process is painful, except for simple movements on flat ground, everything else in Wen 72 style is in dangerous places. Because there is still a need to use illusion to flush the meridians, there is no part of the body that is not painful. In theory, it is very comfortable to absorb illusion energy in the body, but when used to flush meridians, it is very painful. For this reason, coupled with the breakthrough of each type in Wen's 72 formula, the demand for illusion gas used increases layer by layer, making it more difficult to break through later on. Wen Yan is an exception. She practiced very smoothly, and Wen Qinzhou never saw any painful expressions on her face, not at all. I forgot to say, in fact, Wen's 72 formula also has a flaw, which is that the immune protection time is only 2 minutes, while the cooling time is 1 hour. Many times, Wen Qinzhou said to Wen Yan, "If it weren't for me watching you grow up, I wouldn't have doubted that you are a monster that shouldn't exist in the scientific world." Are you really a child? Isn't playing with high talent like this it's too scary. Fortunately, you're my granddaughter. If it were someone else's child, I would definitely be completely jealous. Later, when Qinzhou conducted multiple inspections on Wen Yan, and the results were significant, providing a new method for the descendants of the Wen family to practice the 72 forms of the Wen family. Most people experience feelings of fear when facing extremely harsh environments that threaten their lives. At this time, the adrenaline in the body rapidly increases, causing a series of reactions in the body to fight against fear. These reactions to some extent hinder the movement of illusion, so the whole body will experience stinging pain. During the examination in Qinzhou, Wen Yan did not experience any feelings of fear, not even once. Her heartbeat and breathing remained calm. This made Qinzhou confused. The environment required for practicing Wen's 72 moves was not so important, but rather the adrenaline produced by fear and a series of physical reactions after adrenaline production. Wen Yan didn't have any fear, so she didn't produce adrenaline. So how did she cultivate and how did she do it so quickly? Wen Yan's resounding and powerful answer was due to dopamine. In fact, when there is fear, the body not only secretes adrenaline, but also dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain that helps cells transmit impulses. It is mainly responsible for the brain's desire and sensation, transmitting excitement and happy information. When you feel happy, it increases the production of dopamine. Epinephrine can hinder the flow of hallucinogenic gas, while dopamine can make it flow faster. Simply put, one is an inhibitory effect and the other is a promoting effect. But no one cultivates the 72 forms of the Wen family with a joyful mood. The ancestors of the Wen family created this set of martial arts, but they do not know the best way to cultivate it. In fact, Wen Yan expressed that he did not know that dopamine could also be used to practice Wen's 72 forms, and he practiced them even better. She was only very interested and excited about the first practice on the first day, wanting to see if the body training secrets in this world were the same as those in the cultivation world. The further she practiced, Wen Yan could clearly feel the changes in her body, which was different from the feeling in the cultivation world. She became even more interested in this and had no sense of terror when facing harsh environments. Moreover, she had never seen anything big in her past life, it was just that the environment was a bit harsh. She really didn't feel it, she wasn't afraid. The hormones secreted in her body do not have adrenaline, only dopamine, so she will not feel any pain in her meridians. In addition, others may also be obstructed by the large acupoints in their body when using their illusion energy, making it time-consuming to open the acupoints. And she has already opened all the acupoints, and her cultivation speed is faster than others. Thinking of this, Qinzhou felt heartbroken and looked at someone who was working hard. Since that's the case, why didn't you tell me earlier? Actually, every time I choose an environment for you and take you away from Emperor Star, I am very afraid of being discovered by the people of the Federation. Now it's okay, you can stay at home and practice well, but Grandpa, although you can simulate different dangers at home, the effect will be much worse. Okay, as I didn't say before. To be honest, Zaichuanzi, I didn't feel your pleasure either. When Qinzhou shook the teacup in his hand and said, "Every day is an expression, and I don't see you smiling." Grandpa, Jingzhe said I am a master of emotional management. Wen Yan stopped and watched as Qinzhou returned seriously. Jingzhe. Don't teach the little group what you learn from surfing the internet. Jingzhe. Aggrieved. A small protest, Master, this word has been popular for hundreds of years. Even if I didn't say it, the young master knows it. After knowing the function of Wen's 72 equations, Wen Yan understood one thing. My parents didn't die in battle, she affirmed in her tone. I thought I would keep it from you for a long time. Yes, your parents went to another parallel world through the cover of a black hole. When Qinzhou shook his head helplessly, picked up the teacup on the table, and smiled. He said again, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you. Now the technological capabilities of interstellar space are enough to freely travel through different parallel worlds. Your parents went to that world because there were some accounts to settle, he said before taking a sip of the tea in his cup. I believe they will be back in a few years. Besides, my work hasn't started yet, and the Wen family has enough to bear. It's time to recover interest from some people. The wind is rising. When Qinzhou put down his teacup and looked at the floating cloud leaves moving with the wind in the courtyard. Wen Yan finished today's task and sat across from Wen Qinzhou, drinking tea with him. Everything in the content is fictional. Don't take it too seriously, after all, I don't quite understand either. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Attending Banquets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Attending banquets. A few days later, the banquet time mentioned by Wen Qinzhou arrived. Wen Yan put on the clothes specially customized for her by Wen Qinzhou, tied her waist-length long hair into a high ponytail with a headband, and then walked out towards the main courtyard. Wen Qinzhou arrived at the main courtyard very early, and today he also changed into a set of clothes representing his family. Wearing a silk robe with a moon-white neckline and silver fine patterns, the large lotus patterns on the white garment were like shadows appearing. The light white headband is tied around more than half of the hair and tied low, giving a sense of ethereal elegance. From the Wen family's family pattern of white cranes returning to the clouds, it can be seen that this family values and loves the ancient culture of blue stars. Speaking of the source, it is the ancestor of the Wen family who bought ancient paintings at exorbitant prices. At that time, he was mainly in charge of architectural construction and clothing design in the Wen family. Nowadays, almost all the buildings in Wen's villa are quaint pavilions and towers, but they are indeed linked to technology. Simply put, Wen's villa manor is not as peaceful and picturesque as it appears on the surface. Perhaps beneath the entire estate lies a dense array of laser guns, energy cannons, and landmines. At that time, the ancestor of the Wen family used technological means to thoroughly study the entire ancient painting. It is said that it was a painting that recorded the daily life of the entire city during a certain dynasty. Due to the numerous characters and diverse costumes depicted in the painting, it provided the ancestor of the Wen family with many ideas for clothing design. It is evident that the Wen family all love this type of clothing. Moreover, the descendants of the Wen family improved on the original foundation and gradually developed more styles. The Wen family in the entire federation wears this kind of clothing, which looks good and adds a unique temperament, making it very stylish. Therefore, historical clothing naturally becomes a symbol representing the Wen family. Wen Yan walked briskly, her skirt swaying with her movements, and the red headband fluttered and tangled in the wind. At the first moment when Qinzhou saw Wen Yan, he was secretly happy. He had always felt that Wen Yan was very suitable for black. Although it made children look less lively wearing black, it was still possible to wear it once. After all, the other party is not lively and doesn't interfere. Moreover, the clothing style designed this time is really good. I believe Xuanzi will definitely be handsome and blind those people's eyes. Wen Yan doesn't want to have short hair, but to be honest, long hair seems to be naturally suitable for her. Chang sent her a unique aura, which was cold with a touch of nobility and serious with a touch of liveliness. In one sentence, it means Qin Jun is aloof, but it seems that she cannot be defined in this way. After all, Xuanzi is a very heartwarming person. Alright, Yan Kongwen reflects on Qinzhou. He shouldn't just focus on the appearance of Xuanzi, and he's only 6 years old now. How could he imagine it to be like that? Although her figure has already opened up, it is not difficult to guess what little Xuanzi will look like in the future, but now she can only be said to be cute. Grandpa, are you listening to me? Ah. Sorry, little bun. What did you say? Grandpa was just thinking about something big and lost his mind when Qinzhou awkwardly touched his beard. He couldn't possibly tell Wen Yan that he was thinking about whether she would look good or not in the future, right? This is absolutely impossible. I said, do you want breakfast? Wen Yan said again just now. Eat, the banquet starts at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's only 6 o'clock in the morning now, so you can't go hungry. Also, who told you not to have breakfast in the morning? It's a bad habit. When Chinzhou observed Wen Yan's expression, afraid of speaking too much. Cough, this is because skipping breakfast is not good for the body, such as not growing tall. Yes, it's just not tall. So Ziachuanzi needs to eat well. Wen Yan was speechless. In her past life, she had already passed away at the age of 10, but she still grew very tall, with a slight height difference of 8 feet. According to the current translation, it is close to 1.8 meters. Regarding Wen Chinzhou's words about coaxing children, Wen Yan only listened and didn't pay attention. After all, she's not a child either, but she still needs to eat. It's already 6:30 after breakfast. Although I don't want to go so early, the president has entrusted the protection of the banquet to the Wen family. It's ironic that the protection capabilities of the major federal legions are not as good as those of the Wen family warriors. Alright, let's go. After speaking, Wen Chinzhou touched the space ring on his index finger, and then the space in front of them fluctuated like waves. In a very short time, a silver floating car with a simple appearance but beautiful lines appeared before their eyes. Entering the car, Wen Yan raised his eyebrows slightly, as she had guessed. It looked so plain outside, but inside it was incredibly gorgeous. When I followed Wen Chinzhou to leave the Imperial Star for cultivation, the transportation that Wen Yan used to take was public. She has seen many cars decorated with luxurious exterior designs, as if the more luxurious they are, the higher the status of the owner. If the exterior is not decorated at all, either the owner is really poor and the low-end floating car is not expensive, only 100 stars. Even the poorest can buy it, but they don't have the money to decorate it with more expensive decorations. Either it's a low-key person like Wen Chinzhou, who is not low-key anymore. Only high-end floating cars have beautiful and smooth lines. In Wen Chinzhou's words, isn't the floating car for personal use? Why decorate the exterior so beautifully, and he doesn't find a partner for his floating car, and he can't see it himself? This is a very unique viewpoint. The floating vehicle travels at an extremely fast speed on the track, occasionally avoiding oncoming floating vehicles only a few centimeters away. Wen Yan looked out the window at the towering skyscrapers, with huge billboards playing clips of the currently popular movie. Different types of robots have started working on their tracks, creating a busy and lively scene. In the distant sky, stars are slowly rising, emitting light that gradually illuminates this area, while the unlit areas are still in darkness, with only a few solitary lights scattered on. The distinction between light and darkness is clear, and Wen Yan quietly watches as the darkness is illuminated by the light. This is a scenery that Wen Yan in his past life could not see. In her past life, she only knew how to cultivate every day and missed out on the peerless beauty of the world. However, in the end, she could not escape the rules of the world. She was just a malicious female supporting character used to set off the male and female leads. The floating car continued to climb towards the high altitude, and before Wen Yan's eyes appeared a building resembling a pagoda that floated independently in the sky without any support. Wen Yan had to admit the power of technology. If it weren't for Wen Chinzhou explaining the principles to her in advance, she would really think that this was a world of cultivation disguised as technology. She was already interested in technological civilization, but now she is even more interested. One day, she will understand all the principles of scientific knowledge. Approaching the landing platform, there are already people waiting by the side. Wen Chinzhou hugged Wen Yan and got off the car. At the moment of landing, the floating car was collected into the space ring by Wen Chinzhou. Wen Yan thought to himself, indeed, the space ring is very convenient in any world, but unfortunately, the space in this world is not like that of the cultivation world, which can be planted and raised. Welcome, Master Wen. Standing by the platform staircase, there was a man and a woman. The male server was wearing a well-fitted suit, while the female server was wearing a professional hip-wrap skirt, highlighting her perfect figure. When Qinzhou took the towel handed over by the male waiter, wiped away the non-existent dust on Wen Yan's hands, and then returned it to the male waiter. When Qinzhou walked into the building holding Wen Yan, and he lifted her up with his hand to make her sit more securely. "Grandpa, why don't you put me down? I can leave by myself," Wen Yan whispered in Wen Qinzhou's ear. "You forgot that from today on, you will be playing the role of a physically weak, little waste, in front of the entire federal population." Wen Qinzhou doesn't want to let her down. Wen Yanchang is so big that he hasn't even hugged her much. Can't he seize the opportunity? "I'm heavy, I'm afraid I'll tire you out." "It's okay, your grandfather and I have strong bones." Wen Yan just feels strange, after all, she is also a few hundred years old. The feeling of being held by someone is really hard to accept, but in the end, Wen Yan didn't say anything. Ignoring Wen Qinzhou, Wen Yan looked around and found that Wen Qinzhou had already entered the building. The main color inside the building is bright yellow. The corridor she is passing through now is lined with French window, and the outside scenery is clearly visible. The entire inner wall is an electronic screen, separated by a few meters, either a portrait or a landscape painting, with a strong projection effect. Every time Wen Qinzhou walked past a painting, Wen Yan felt as if he had also entered the painting. "Very interesting, isn't it?" Wen Qinzhou smiled. It's really facial paralysis." Wen Qinzhou sighed and said, "Forget it, it would be great to be hugged." He knew that one should not be greedy, otherwise in the end, there would be nothing left. After a long time, Wen Qinzhou finally walked to the main entrance of the banquet hall. Wen Yan looked at the few people who suddenly appeared in front of him, all wearing the same simple and capable black martial arts attire. The prototype of the clothing imitated the daily attire of ancient martial artists. Later, after modification, the top and skirt were cut short, and the binding of the wrist and calf parts was no longer so tight, which relaxed a lot. It was both beautiful and practical. "Master, everything has been arranged properly and everything is normal." One of the leaders clearly reported the current situation to Wen Qinzhou. "Okay, at the beginning of the banquet, be sure to put in a 12-point spirit and always pay attention to everyone. Remember, it's everyone." "I understand now." After speaking, the few people disappeared instantly. "Xiao Wen Yan, I may have some time to deal with something, and then you can stay with Uncle President. Grandpa has a good relationship with him. You don't have to be afraid of him." "Okay. Why are you talking so little today? Are you feeling uncomfortable?" Wen Yan looked into Wen Qinzhou's eyes, full of concern, and she said helplessly. "Grandpa, I'm a bit unfamiliar, there's nothing to say." Actually, she doesn't know how to communicate with others. Wen Qinzhou. This is the truth. In Wen Yan's past life and this life, she didn't have many people to interact with. She has a cold and aloof personality and won't actively communicate with others. But it would be more accurate to describe it in Jingzha's words, social phobia. In this situation, as long as you boldly try to interact and communicate with people. I really haven't been careless in updating, mainly because my writing is not good and I need to make several revisions to improve. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Banquet in Progress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Banquet in Progress. It's okay, Grandpa will take you out for more walks in the future. With more people we see and communicate with, you will have more words. Wen Yan did not reply, his attention was focused on the picture, and his mind was running rapidly. For her now, illusion and science are so similar. Is there a chance to combine the two? Wen Qinzhou walked a section of the red carpet into the hall. As the banquet had not yet begun, there were hardly any guests in the hall, only busy waiters. In theory, robots should be used, but wealthy people unanimously believe that robots are not elegant and noble enough to match their identity. Therefore, The waiters generally recruited by high-level clubs are professionally trained models or small stars, even bionic people, robots with the first mock examination of human appearance, are not allowed. The circle of upper-class society is never accessible to ordinary people. Even top-tier celebrities who have become popular without a background in upper-class society will be excluded. The only difference is that this is the most luxurious and top-notch club in the entire federation, Yuntai. The building resembling a pagoda that Wen Yan saw earlier, and it is also the venue for this banquet. Those who can serve here are superstars or genius elites among ordinary people who have undergone rigorous screening. Except for the wealthy, as long as you don't have such a shabby appearance, even if you are an ordinary citizen and have enough ability, you can enter the top of the social circle, Yuntai. But in the interstellar era, which one is not handsome or beautiful? This competition can be imagined to be so intense. Yuntai is not just about waiters, it welcomes talented elites from all walks of life. Wen Yan is not aware of the status of Yuntai in this country, but this does not prevent her from observing the entire hall. Although the main color tone is bright yellow, it is also mixed with other colors to complement each other. The grand layout, approximate natural and beautiful lines, create a luxurious atmosphere. There is a large open space in the middle, which is obviously for dancing. Various exquisite foods are neatly arranged around the space, and sofa cushions are placed around the four corners. The air is filled with light perfume, which makes people feel mysterious and elegant. The waiter maintains the most elegant form of etiquette, either busy or quiet. After a brief glance by Wen Yan, Wen Qinzhou had already entered the elegant room where special guests were received. It was completely impossible to see such an elegant room from the hall, but it was easy to see the entire hall from within. The wall made of special materials separates it from the outside, forming small worlds. This kind of elegant room only receives the heads of the four major aristocratic families and the three giants of military, law, and politics. Although the Wen family has lost Wen Lan, there is still Wen Qinzhou. Even though he has shed most of his sharpness, he cannot underestimate it. After all, under his management, the Wen family was ranked first among the four major aristocratic families of Xia, Shen, Fu, and Wen. At the beginning, the major military groups dared to suppress Wen Qinzhou because they believed that the high status of the Wen family was due to the presence of Wen Lan, who did not care about Wen Qinzhou at all. In everyone's impression, Wen Qinzhou is a frail and sickly old man, and Wen Qinzhou has indeed left them with such an image, which has lasted for many years. As a result, reality slapped them hard, making them understand that Wen Qinzhou has always been acting and is not easy to deal with. Ming cannot come only means that cannot be seen. At the beginning, Wen Qinzhou did not take action to resist just to find out how many people had ambitions towards their Wen family, and as a result, most of the legions participated. Of course, there is another reason, but Wen Qinzhou stated that he will not tell anyone. Division, half an hour before the banquet starts. In every bustling city, there is a dark corner. In this corner, you will see all the evil aspects of human nature. In the darkness, there are not only ugly faces, but also greed, food, lust, arrogance, jealousy, anger, laziness, and so on. Here, human nature is not just about nutrients, but more about toxins. Under the gorgeous and extremely extravagant packaging of Yuntai, all the evil aspects of the upper-class elites are also poured into it. For example, this should not exist in an arena, but in fact, what is a fighting beast? Here, it is not the same kind of monster that fights against monsters, but humans. Su Lin was sold to this place a month ago, and this is already the third place he has been bought. His father used to be a planet leader of a medium-sized star, and during his tenure, he worked diligently and wholeheartedly for the people. But because their beliefs contradict those who only pursue fame, fortune, and pleasure, they are designed to be imprisoned, their families are exiled, and those who are bought are bought. Su Lin opened his eyes, and the prolonged hunger left him feeling powerless and dizzy. The world before him was shrouded in mist, making it difficult to see clearly. But he knew he was staying in a basement, surrounded by many people, all of whom were children the same age as him. The person guarding them said that as long as they walk out of the arena alive tonight or are favored and bought by the wealthy, they can really survive. This is their only chance to survive, but will it really be that easy? Su Lin didn't know, to say a ridiculous thing, he didn't even believe he could stand up. He still has the only nutrient solution hidden on his body, which he picked up when passing by the garbage station. When he used to live in a luxurious and safe villa, by monitoring the homeless children, the food in the trash can, and the drink in the trash can, he would think. So unclean, wouldn't he get sick? Now he understands, what if it's not clean? If he still cares about cleanliness at this time, he will starve to death. Wen Yan followed beside Wen Qinzhou, watching one after another with fake smiles carrying red wine and champagne, coming to talk to Wen Qinzhou and get close. Wen Yan felt a slight headache in an instant. In her past life, she was a cultivator and never participated in such places. One reason is that she is not good at socializing, and the other reason is that she feels that almost no one really wants to be her friend, and her hypocritical smile makes her dislike it. She doesn't have the energy to interact with others, striving to make everyone like and admire her. She doesn't have that ability. Now she is following beside Wen Qinzhou, unable to walk away for the first time. Now is the best time for her to recognize all the people who have bullied Wen Qinzhou. How has Mr. Wen been lately? He has always wanted to visit the mansion, but he is burdened with trivial matters and finds it difficult to leave. The newcomer wore a black suit, slightly white hair, and although he was old, his figure and physique were well maintained, with a smile on his face, only feeling amiable. Brother Shen has a heart. With so many days, just come whenever you have time. Xiao Wen Yan, this is your grandpa Shen. Wen Yan has always had a conversation with someone, so there's no need to think about who they are. Shen Yeru, the head of the Shen family, who is one of the 4 major aristocratic families and has no malicious intentions towards the Wen family, is quite familiar with Wen Qinzhou. Wen Yan clearly felt the emotional changes in Wen Qinzhou, using overly polite language and responding perfunctorily to others. For the person in front of him, Wen Qinzhou was really happy, and his tone became much more relaxed and joyful. Are these the children of Wen Lan and Han Lu? They've both grown up so much, how come time passes so quickly? Shen Yeru looked at Wen Yan, whose eyebrows and eyes were extremely similar to Wen Lan, and felt uneasy. Wen Lan was the one he watched grow up with. Although he was mischievous, he would still sweetly call out, Shen Dad, when he saw him. Unfortunately, things have changed and people have changed. White-haired people give black-haired people away. Sorry brother, it's making you feel bad too. Shen Yeru stepped forward and drew a distance with Wen Qinzhou, patting each other's shoulders with both hands. Wen Yan frowned slightly, and upon seeing this posture, he knew that Wen Qinzhou had not told Shen Yeru the actual situation. When the time came, Wen Qinzhou would have time to slowly explain to his friend. She didn't disturb the conversation between the 2 elderly people, just stayed quietly beside them and looked at the people in the hall. What Wen Yan didn't know was that her quiet demeanor became timid in the eyes of others, and in a short period of time, she produced more than 10 versions. But most of them are not good words. The most widely circulated one is, General Wen Lan's child has poor talent and is a complete waste. Great, the goal of Wen Qinzhou has been achieved again, so there are some things that cannot be seen solely by the eyes. It's important to understand the facts. For example, Wen Qinzhou made some modifications to her face, covering up a lot of her rough appearance, and only a rough eyebrow and eye can be seen. I believe Wen Qinzhou has told Shen Yeru. If Wen Qinzhou didn't say anything about it, it would be a bit of a trap for friends. At this moment, a man with a strong aura appeared in Wen Yan's field of vision. He was wearing a traditional indigo military uniform, with military boots making a powerful sound as he walked, and the cloak behind him swayed in the wind with his movements. As we approached, we found that the man was very young and could better complement his abundant and handsome demeanor. Against the backdrop of military uniform, the facial features are more angular and the lines are smooth and resolute. "Good evening, Mr. Wen and Mr. Shen," the person stopped in front of the two elderly people, with a respectful tone. "Good evening, Your Excellency President." Wen Yan. She never expected that the federal president of Xinyuan would be so young. She thought he would be very old. However, she suddenly remembered that there was a huge change in the political arena 3 years ago, and the previous president failed in the change and stepped down. In that case, half of the reason why this president can succeed now is due to the support of the Wen and Shen families. My grandfather once said that the current president is a capable and strategic person, and over time, there will inevitably be significant changes in the star planes. Everything is going smoothly. Could you please help me take care of my grandson? Waiting for the good news. When Qinzhou touched Wen Yan's head, and she naturally walked to the side of His Excellency the President. Looking at the man's outstretched hand, Wen Yan hesitated for a moment, but ultimately put his hand into the man's palm. "See you later." When Qinzhou said goodbye to a few people and glanced at Wen Yan again, which made Shen Yeru laugh. "What are you worried about? Why don't you take the stage and have a speech? We're not stealing your child, go ahead. When did you become so clingy to the child? There's no serious person in old age. Continuous updates are really difficult." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Colosseum. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Colosseum. Wen Yan's whole hand was wrapped in the man's broad hand. She wanted to retract it, but found that she couldn't pull it anymore. Okay, as he looks, he is indeed a strong man. With this thought in mind, Wen Yan stopped struggling and held hands without losing out. Suddenly, the whole room fell silent. At this moment, a stage slowly rises in the open space in the center of the hall, and the lighting changes from warm light to blue fluorescence, filling up the sense of technology. When Qinzhou appeared out of thin air in the center of the stage, with a spotlight shining on him. Wen Yan looked at his grandfather and said, "Anyway, welcome everyone to the president's birthday party. Everyone should eat and drink well, don't be constrained, and have fun to the fullest." Wen Yan looked up at the person sitting next to her, but it didn't look like celebrating her birthday. "Oh, that's right. It's unbearable to be at a high altitude. How can people of high authority have a happy birthday party? Can you find 10 people present with sincere blessings? How could this be so similar to her in her previous life?" In the end, Wen Yan couldn't help but shake the other person's hand. Hua Jihan turned his head to look at the child and was about to ask what was wrong, but the child just said, "Happy birthday." Hua Jihan raised his eyebrows and rarely felt happy. He bent down and pretended not to hear the child's voice. "What are you saying? I didn't hear it." Wen Yan looked at the other person's teasing eyes. Where could he not know that he was pretending? She ignored him and turned to look at the center of the stage. "Ah, the child has a pretty big temper," Hua Jihan only found it funny. "It's teasing you. I heard it, thank you for your blessings, I'm very happy. It's really been a long time since I was as happy as today." The man's voice gradually sank, and Wen Yan thought he had accidentally poked the other person's tears. He was about to pat him with his other empty hand, but he heard, "If I could tease you every day in the future, I would be even happier." Wen Yan. Thank you for the invitation. I will often visit your house in the future. Otherwise, I would like to place a fast teleportation channel at your house so that I can see you every day. There's no way, but who knows, you're so beautiful. Yan controller Hua Jihan noticed at first glance the facial mask that Wen Qinzhou had made for Wen Yan, using the one that made his appearance the ugliest. Don't ask him why he knows, even if he has used it before, it really turned ugly after he used it, but the child still looks very beautiful. Nowadays, interstellar technology is advanced, and there is no ugliness in all humanity. Everyone is handsome and beautiful, but for someone like Wen Yan, looking for several galaxies may not find one. It's not difficult for him to imagine how amazing his face is under the mask. His bones are already so beautiful, so why not look forward to it? He used to compete with a group of stinky old men every day, and if this continues, he will be assimilated, so it's really important to see the little fairy every day. Hua Jihan felt more and more necessary as he thought about it, and now he just wants to go online and buy the fastest fast channel. At this moment, a gentle song sounded, and the stage in the middle had disappeared. People carried each other's dance partners, stepping into the venue with their voices, and the ball began. Wen Yan felt novel as she sat on the sofa, quietly watching the crowd on the dance floor. After the dance, she couldn't say she could read it 100%, but she had already learned the basic steps and techniques, which were quite interesting. Is it still unavoidable? Hua Jihan suddenly unconsciously tightened his grip on Wen Yan's hand. Wen Yan thought to himself, what cannot be avoided? At this moment, all the people on the dance floor stepped down, and Wen Yan realized that all the dancers were brightly dressed waiters, with no guests coming on stage. Then, people began to walk in the direction of the elevator, and in an instant, the number of people in the hall decreased by half. Wen Qinzhou and Shenyeru returned at some point. Shenyeru said to Hua Jihan, let's go. In a few years, this entertainment project will no longer exist. Hua Jihan answered in a muffled tone, looking that his mood was really not very good. Wen Yan looked at the few people without asking, becoming a cold and aloof human cub. Is it okay for the child to see these, Uncle Wen? Hua Jihan saw that almost everyone around him had left, so he called Wen Qinzhou as he did privately. Why don't people take her back early? Don't worry, Xiao Wenyan is even more powerful than you imagine. If you don't let her see, she may have some thoughts of sneaking in. And I also want to take this opportunity to let her choose a close warrior. Wen Yan couldn't understand the conversation of several people and couldn't guess how to play riddles. Forget it, we'll find out later anyway. She was led into the elevator by 3 people. The elevator is actually a square box without floor buttons, and Wen Yan doesn't feel anything. The destination has already arrived. The principle of this elevator is actually controlled by spiritual power. Nowadays, everything relies on the brain. As long as you form thinking in your mind, the brain can collect spiritual power and achieve what you think in your mind. At the moment he stepped out of the elevator, the scene before him truly shook Wen Yan. This is a huge arena. It is divided into 3 levels. Upper, middle, and lower, with each level divided into hundreds, which can accommodate millions of people at the same time. The entire field is the size of 7 or 8 basketball courts, and is covered by a huge light curtain, emitting a fluorescent blue light throughout. There is a huge screen with 3 sides hanging directly above the venue, which can synchronize the game situation. At this point, the entire arena was filled with people, specifically virtual humans. The general public cannot directly enter the cloud platform, but they can enter the online world through a virtual cabin and then choose to enter the cloud platform arena in the online world. At this moment, the host is holding a microphone and sitting on a small aircraft, moving rapidly throughout the venue, speaking words that enhance the atmosphere, which is exciting and exciting. The audience also gave face, cheering and screams rising one after another. Let's take a look in the room first. Hua Jihan held Wen Yan's hand, if you don't take the road seriously, you'll fall. Wen Yan has nothing to say, she just looks quite short, young, but not foolish. Also, why has Your Excellency been holding her hand? By the way, Uncle Wen and Uncle Shen, I don't have my own room in the arena, do you think you do? Hua Jihan's words stunned the 2 elderly people walking in front. To be honest, there used to be rooms for both of us, but as you know, Shen and I usually don't come to watch games. It used to be when Lanner came to handle things. We 2 old men watch very little, and we only watch live broadcasts from home. So later when Lanner had an accident, she told the Yuntai executives not to leave us any rooms every year, taxes are collected, which is a huge expense, and money should not be wasted. Looking back at this moment, Wen Qinzhou felt a little regretful. It should have been a long time since the two families had one left. After all, there were special circumstances like now. The Shen family is a military and political aristocratic family. The descendants of the Shen family have always hated the existence of the Yuntai Colosseum. When they first had room quotas, they argued and refused to leave. Later on, Shen Yeru didn't know what means he used, but surprisingly, all the descendants of the Shen family agreed. It was up to Shen Yeru to decide everything. Until when Qinzhou gave up the quota, Shen Yeru also followed suit. Then let's ask the waiter and just find a room. Hua Jihan directly found a waiter and led them into room 14. Dear esteemed guests, please rest assured of safe use. The entire room has good sound insulation and a good viewing view, ensuring absolute privacy. If you have any questions, please call us through your earphones, and we will do our best to meet all the needs of the guests. The waiter finished speaking and slightly bent his belt towards the few people in the room before exiting. Wen Yan observed the entire room, decorated in a red and black color scheme, with a sofa placed in the middle and various pastries and fruits on the coffee table. When facing the sofa, there is a huge French window, and you can have a panoramic view of the whole stadium. When Qinzhou looked at his granddaughter who was still being pulled by Hua Jihan and couldn't help but ask Hua Jihan to let go, then let her sit next to him. It's clearly his granddaughter, how could it be like Hua Jihan's daughter? He is very unhappy. Hua Jihan didn't care, but just as he was about to sit on the empty side of Wen Yan, Shen Yeru's speed was even faster than him. There's no seat left here, let's sit next to it. Shen Yeru smiled kindly at Hua Jihan. He reached out and didn't hit the smiling person, and besides, Hua Jihan didn't dare to. So he could only secretly poke with displeasure, sitting on another sofa with a cold face. Wen Yan knows the thoughts of several people, they are all a group of daughter slaves, and she is not easy to say anything. Let the few people do whatever they want. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as soon as possible. Our competition is about to begin. The voice of the host, sweet sister, echoed through the entire arena as she controlled the aircraft to constantly change its position. Good afternoon, dear audience friends. Finally, we have met again. Have you all thought of Miao Miao? Cheers erupted in the crowd, giving the host face. The host named Miao Miao chuckled and said, remember to go to the cinema to support my new movie. Returning to the main topic, the semi-annual animal fighting competition has finally arrived. This time, the owner has prepared the highest quality hunters and prey, which will definitely be a visual feast. I believe friends all know the rules of the Colosseum. The countdown to betting time is 30 seconds. Please choose the answer in your mind. The countdown is starting now. Miao Miao's sweet voice echoed throughout the entire arena, starting the countdown. 33, 2, 1. The countdown ended, and a popular and explosive song of the moment rang out in the audience. Okay. The betting time is over and the competition officially begins. Let's look forward to this competition together. The camera shifts from Miao Miao to face the arena that the audience cares most about. Amidst the cheers of the audience, the gate on one side of the venue opened. A 20-meter long, 8-meter high, and 12-meter wide iron cage was slowly pushed out by the conveyor belt and appeared in everyone's field of vision. The whole venue quieted down, and the audience gradually saw the giant beast in the cage by watching 3 advertising screens or adjusting their optical brain to synchronize the race field. It's actually a 3-winged lizard armored beast. This is a level 3 mutated beast. A very frightened voice erupted in the crowd, and one after another, the crowd began to stir. At the same time, the door on the other side of the field also opened, and slowly walked out was a small boy with messy clothes and a thin and short stature. When Yan's heart was startled, it was different from what she had thought. In this arena, mutated beasts become hunters, while prey turns into humans. I asked myself, what kind of junk writing are you doing? End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Cruelty. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 9. Cruelty in the world before Wen Yan. There were also similar competitions. But that's all about people comparing to people, animals comparing to beasts. In formal terms, it's called a arena. Such a competition is not allowed in the cultivation world. After all, the righteous and prestigious families reject all evil spirits, crooked paths, or similar ones. Of course, those hidden in the dark will never be exposed to sunlight. As far as Wen Yan knows, there are also many monsters and ferocious beasts in this world. Interstellar radiation is very strong, and most monsters undergo genetic mutations due to radiation, becoming brutal and bloody. In order to adapt to the environment, mutated beasts have various ways of mutation, and they are not static. They are constantly changing, and the speed of reproduction and the variety of variations make it impossible for humans to grasp their evolutionary direction. Fortunately, these mutated beasts are easily hunted and killed. By using thermal weapons, mechs, or human abilities, mutated beasts can be killed. Of course, those who can kill mutated beasts on their own will not be too weak in strength. Either they have strong spiritual power, or their physical skills have reached an infinite level. On planets inhabited by humans, the ferocious mutated beasts have been completely eradicated, and only remote primitive stars that are not suitable for human habitation have a large number of mutated beast activities. Mutant beasts also have levels, ranging from 1 to 5. From 5 to 1, the stronger the mutated beast's strength, the less likely it is to be killed. Wen Yan looked at the boy on the field, and the drone enlarged his expression. His fear, despair, and small body were rapidly trembling on the advertising screen. Unable to bear to look directly, Wen Yan silently looked at the few people next to him and found that their faces remained unchanged. It turned out that they knew. The people in the audience became even more excited when they saw the boy appear. If you listen carefully and find that they are not sympathizing or worrying about him. Instead, he was loudly saying words of regret, "I should have squeezed a little less time a long time ago. This game is a big loss." What time? The time when a boy died, the time when he was bitten to death by a mutated beast, the time when a fresh life disappeared. The audience more or less participated in the bet, some earning a lot of money, while others lost everything. They don't care about humans dying from mutated beasts, they only care about the value of this human, and they only value whether they can make a profit. Gamblers exist in the world, and darkness comes from the abyss. The ugliness of human nature is infinitely magnified here. Wen Yan felt great sadness. In her past life, she would definitely save the persecuted party and kill the organizer completely. But now she cannot, ultimately because she does not have the strength and power to intimidate others. On this side, the three-winged lizard armored beast slowly walked out of the iron cage, and every step it took was like a mountain falling into the ground, shaking. Even the crowd in the audience could feel it. The boy was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat all over, feeling powerless and unable to move even a step. He could only watch as the mutated beast walked step by step out of the iron cage, then waved its 3 wings behind it, emitting a loud roar. When the giant beast stared at him, the alarm rang in his heart, and the only words in his mind were, "Run fast." But when he took 2 or 3 steps, he lost his vitality. The last glance was the red eyes of the mutated beast. Wen Yan took a deep breath of air, and Wen Chinzhou hugged her shoulders as a sign of comfort. She is not afraid either, after all, she has never seen any bloody scenes before. However, millions of people simultaneously watched a child being bitten to death by a mutated beast, and after being bitten to death, they still cheered, which made her nauseous and nauseous. She couldn't understand how abnormal a person's psychology could be, and to what extent it could be distorted. Perhaps in reality, these audiences are all good citizens, but in the online world, virtual portraits can be transformed and IP addresses can be hidden. Under such protection, they freely release their evil side, insulting, cyberbullying, deceiving, saying things they dare not say and doing things they dare not do. Internet police officers also turn a blind eye and only come to stop them when they come to their doorstep. In some cases, they may even be blindfolded and unable to see. It's not that there are no kind people, it's just that they dare not show it. This era is like this, Wen Yan has already deeply experienced it. She finally understood why Wen Qinzhou had spared no effort to make Hua Jihan the new president. The person who truly loves this country is unwilling to see it go to destruction on that day. The game is still ongoing on the field, and the audience is constantly betting, representing an increasing number of dead girls or boys, teenagers or girls on the field. There are also many people among them who resist, causing wounds of all sizes to the three-winged lizard armored beast. But they all failed and died. Su Lin quietly drank the nutrient solution, and it took him a long time to feel alive. Finally, my stomach no longer feels cramped and uncomfortable from hunger, and the world in front of me has become much clearer. He watched with his own eyes as his companions were pulled out of the basement and never returned. Mutant beasts. Why don't you dare? Su Lin regained his strength and firmly grasped the short blade of unified hair in his hand. He is really unwilling to die like this. He has not yet avenged his father's revenge. He is unwilling, really unwilling, so, Su Lin, you must live on. Next, Su Lin. The door to the basement opened and the visitor looked at Su Lin. Hee, it's finally your turn, kid. Damn it, I've been looking down on you for a long time. Remember to die faster for me. I'll hold you down for 30 seconds, but I won't disappoint you. Su Lin was dragged out of the door and passed through a pitch-black passage. He stood up and down the stairs, with a cold wind blowing in his ear. He calmed his mind and secretly cheered himself on. Don't be afraid, just treat it as regular training. Suddenly, Su Lin's eyes lit up and instinctively raised his hand to block the light, squinting as he looked ahead. The sound in my ears is no longer the wind, but the cheers and cheers that rise higher than the waves. When he saw the mutated beast, his heart actually calmed down. The three-winged lizard armored beast is covered in scales all over its body, incredibly sturdy, with amazing defense, fast movement speed, extremely strong bite ability, and a strong sense of territory. It will do anything to kill animals and humans entering its territory. The only weakness lies in the brain, not because there are no scales there, but because mental power is the best way to kill it. When the drone filmed the entire person in the vicinity, a large portion of the audience was impressed by his appearance. Although the clothes are dirty and messy, the exotic features are incredibly beautiful, just like a destitute Western nobleman who is always heart-wrenching no matter what. Ah, what a pity. This younger brother is so handsome, I don't want to see him die. May my handsome younger brother hold on for a while longer, it's okay if my sister loses. Can I take the dead body with me? I can soak it in formalin as a specimen. Su Lin did not pay attention to what others said. He focused all his attention on the three-winged lizard armored beast. He won't die so easily. The three-winged lizard armored beast quickly launched an attack, and Su Lin picked up his knife in a blocking position. At the moment when the three-winged lizard armored beast was about to collide with Su Lin, there were loud screams in the audience. But the next scene made everyone unable to believe it. At the moment when the three-winged lizard armored beast collided with Su Lin suddenly disappeared out of thin air and appeared on the other side of the field. The space around the three-winged lizard armored beast fluctuates, forming a new space to lock it inside. Spatial attributes. Shen Yeru said, "This child is worth cultivating." Su Lin was panting heavily, but his body still hadn't fully recovered. But he didn't hesitate at all and released all his spiritual power. When he encountered the spiritual power of the three-winged lizard armored beast, he instantly devoured it and annihilated it. The three-winged lizard armored beast suddenly stopped running and fell to the ground, declaring death, with a time of no more than 10 seconds. Su Lin collapsed to the ground, enduring a sharp pain in his head and panting heavily. This game, Su Lin Sheng. Host Meow Meow was confused and used to saying, "Please the next one," but suddenly forgot to announce the result of the competition. She was stunned for a few seconds before finally realizing it. Number X56H, Su Lin, won. Meow Meow's voice pulled back the shocked people. From praise to insults, it only takes a moment. What's going on? How did he survive? I paid for everything. I'm losing a lot. I'm losing a lot. I don't believe it. Is this what your organizers are looking for? All the money earned tonight is gone. Lose money. Some people were overjoyed and said, I finally won a game. I got rich. Meow Meow listened to the unbearable words in the room, raised her volume, and shouted loudly. Silence, silence. Please understand what this place is. The organizer cannot find a trust to earn everyone's money. To put it bluntly, the organizer still needs your little money. Please control yourself and treat every game rationally for those who make negative comments. According to traditional rules, next we will auction X56H. Friends who have ideas about X56H, please hurry up. The auction is about to start. At this moment, the most popular song of the moment is playing on the advertising screen, and the beautiful and melodious melody moves every audience present. Su Lin felt like he was falling into an ice cellar. Auction. He was treated as a commodity for auction. He had never heard of such an operation before, and the sudden auction made him dizzy. The song is over and the auction officially begins. According to the organizer's agreement, the starting bidding price for X56H is 1,000 star-month coins, and each bidding must not be less than 500 star-month coins. The bidding will begin. As soon as the host finished speaking, some people in the audience began to shout prices one after another. 1,500, 2,500. 6,000. When the whole audience heard this quotation, they all began to back down. After all, Star Moon coin is different from Star coin. For a small slave, it's not worth spending too much money. Even if one has exceptional talent, it still costs a lot to cultivate. 100,000. Oh no. The whole room took a deep breath of air. On the 14th, Yejian offered 100,000 yuan. 100,000 yuan once, 100,000 yuan twice, 100,000 yuan 3 times. Okay, congratulations to the guests in the elegant room on the 14th. We will arrange for our staff to deliver the auction items immediately. Please don't worry, guests, who is this? Is it so generous to make a move? Don't you know? The 14th room has always been used by the Han family. I heard he likes X56H like this. That's it. Who is in love with tea? Shoo, yes. Don't say it, are you not afraid of losing your life? So it's him, no wonder he's willing to spend money. However, for the group of elites upstairs, the 100,000 star and moon coins are not very expensive, it's just that the Han family has had close contact with the commander of the 4th Army Corps in recent years. Everyone actually gives face to the commander of the 4th Army, and they don't want to compete with that playboy. Unfortunately, this child is really talented. Tisk, it's really a pity. Wen Chinzhou. Did you just spend these 100,000 star and month coins? Shen Yeru looked incredulous. This is not a 100,000 star coin, you just spent it casually. Wen Chinzhou didn't take it seriously. It's okay, our family has a big business, and we can earn it back in a week. Then he laughed again and said, and it's good to buy a death warrior for Xiao Wenyan. Shen Yeru was defeated and said, okay, you old boy, you really don't use money as money. After careful consideration, he said, but you're right. You earned it back in a week. I think that child's talent and abilities are quite good and worth cultivating. Forget it, everything is for Xiao Wenyan, he comforted himself. Wen Yan. Hey. Ha. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Another Abyss. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 10. Another Abyss. Su Lin was taken off the venue by the waiter and turned around to take a look. The body of the three-winged lizard armored beast was pulled down, and at the same time, a new type of mutant beast was pushed onto the field. On the other side of the gate, another child appeared in front of the public. The child was wearing a white shirt, which contrasted sharply with the darkness behind him. At the end of each competition, robots will come on stage to clean the ground, treating those lost lives as garbage. Children are clearly hope for the future, but here they become gambling chips for gamblers and entertainment items for the rich. Su Lin turned his head and just a few steps into the hallway, the cheers in his ears overshadowed the screams. He couldn't help but speed up, even though his legs were weak, he just wanted to leave this place quickly. Two waiters led him into a room with a large space inside. They walked straight to the sofa and sat down, pointing to a door and saying to Su Lin, "Go in and wash yourself well, tidy up. There's also something inside the clothes, wear it casually." Su Lin nodded and then walked towards the door. Just as he was about to close it, one of the waiters suddenly said, "Ah. Wait a moment, I suggest you, wear white, that guest likes it." "Thank you." Su Lin unconsciously squeezed the hand hidden behind the door. He closed the door and leaned his head lightly against it. "Why did you tell him this? You and I don't know about the 14th Yejian Hanyi. How many perverts are there? I don't know how many have been killed last month. I suggest to this child, hoping that Hanyi will take it lightly." "Sheng," he said in a warm tone. "Oh, I can't tell you're still such a kind person. You've been on Yuntai for so long, and I don't know how to restrain yourself." "You Chenling, what do you mean?" "Ha! You don't know what I mean. You're a poor person, you really think entering the cloud platform would be unbearable. If it weren't for my good temper, would you be able to spend a year peacefully on Yuntai? Don't." The person didn't finish speaking, and then it quieted down outside. Yu Chenling lowered his voice and spoke harshly, "I'm teaching you not to be so kind and not so soft-hearted in Yuntai, the most mixed place in the power circle. Do you understand? Otherwise, you wouldn't know how you'll die tomorrow." Yu Chenling looked at the man pressed under him, and his slightly red eyes made him frown irritably. "Just a few words and I'll be wronged. It's not a man at all. If I hadn't treated you like a brother, I wouldn't have said these things to you." He turned his head away, then slowly got up and sat on the nearby sofa, no longer speaking. After taking a shower, Su Lin hastily dried his hair, which was messy but exceptionally handsome. When he was choosing clothes, he hesitated for a long time and still chose a white one. He looked at himself in the mirror, with the slanted edges adorned with black lace, making his skin even fairer. The more obvious collarbone is slightly exposed, giving a slightly enchanting feeling. For the first time, Su Lin disliked his appearance so much. Now that he is 9 years old, due to geographical reasons and various elements, his facial features are already very obvious. His straight nose bridge, deep eyes, thin lips, sword eyebrows. A little child, like an adult. Su Lin walked out of the bathroom, ignoring the astonishment in the eyes of the two waiters outside. Western nobleman. Previously, it was. But what's the use of that? In the Interstellar era, being too beautiful was also a disaster. Then came a relatively long corridor, at the end of which Su Lin followed two waiters into the elevator. In the blink of an eye, it has already gone from the -17th floor to the 23rd floor. Dong dong dong. "Please come in." Opening the door of room 14 and looking at the guests inside, both of them felt a bit confused. Yu Chenling was the first to react and quietly pulled Sheng He next to him. "Dear customer, your auction items have been delivered. Please feel free to contact us if you need anything." Wen Yan turned her head to look at the door, only to realize that she was sandwiched between the sofa by Wen Qinzhou and Xin Yeru, and her gaze was blocked to death. She turned her face numbly and continued to look at the field. The child on the field this time also had some strength and seemed to be able to successfully kill the mutated beast, but in the end, Wen Yan had no way of knowing his whereabouts. "Thank you, we don't need it at the moment." Upon hearing this, Sheng He bent down slightly. Then, revealing Su Lin behind his back, he turned his head and whispered to him, "Go in, don't be afraid." The two of them left, and Yu Chenling took a deep breath before suddenly laughing. "I really envy that child's luck," he looked at Sheng He, who was still a bit confused. Sheng He turned his head and asked, "Isn't that Han Yi?" Han Yi, also known as Han Wei, is a frequent visitor to Yuntai. Every night, Sheng He sees him go to the nightclub to play, and he is already very familiar with him. It's normal if you don't know. You didn't go to the reception hall today. The few people sitting on the sofa just now are the head of the Wen family, the head of the Shen family, and President Hua. As expected, the young master of the Wen family is also here, and this child is indeed lucky. What's different about that? Oh, young master, I'm not talking about you. I don't know anything, and I don't know how to be smart. If it weren't for your partner being me, I would have been sold out long ago. The Wen and Shen families belong to the four major aristocratic families, and the Wen family is the head of the four major aristocratic families. You should know about the four major aristocratic families. Anyway, the most wealthy, powerful, and influential of the main star are the four major aristocratic families. Today, this child should be the martyr prepared by the head of the Wen family for the young master. You have also seen that child's performance on the field, right? With spatial attributes and mental strength, spatial attributes are very rare, and you always know that. Sheng He nodded, indicating understanding. Forget it, let's not talk anymore. I'll talk to you slowly when I have the chance. You're really annoying, why don't you know anything? Sheng He finished listening and let out an exclamation. He didn't pay much attention to what Yu Chenling said. He knew that compared to himself, Yu Chenling was a true young master. Although his family power could only be in the middle of the main star row, he was several thousand times stronger than this poor man. Indeed, as Yu Chenling said, he has no knowledge of the upper-class aristocratic circle. All of his messages are seen online, and true elites will not casually post them online and promote them widely. For him as an intellectual, entering the cloud platform actually doesn't have much opportunity to interact with those powerful figures. He is not at a high level, and the work assigned to him is the lowest level. His main job is to design engineering drawings for the gimbal, often staying in the room to design drafts, and only coming out at night to receive guests. He didn't have the opportunity to get up close with influential people, nor did he have the opportunity to brush his face, but he didn't care, just wanted to do his job well. When his 3-year contract expired, he left Yuntai to do what he wanted to do. The people from Yuechen Ridge are quite nice and take good care of him. The words may sound a bit harsh, but his heart is not bad. Yu Chenling has his own arrogant capital, and he just came to Yuntai to gild it. People who leave Yuntai will always be seen more. Sheng and he have been working hard for so long to become the chief engineer in China and then apply to join Yuntai as a waiter. Isn't it also for the sake of making going out more popular in the future, finding better jobs, and making parents better off? Alright, don't think too much. Let's go back to work with the young master. Fortunately, we didn't bully others like some waiters during the transportation and sales of goods. He shouldn't cause trouble for us in the future. Since entering the room, Su Lin's heart has been pounding uncontrollably. He stood quietly next to the door, head down, hands hanging on his side, nervously pinching the corners of his clothes. He is not like Sheng He. Yu Chenling explained to him that he now feels that the few people in the room are Han Yi and his subordinates. He has been bowing his head since entering the room, afraid to look at the few people inside. He knows what T-fetish is, and no matter what, he is still a child. How can this not make him afraid? Just walked out of an abyss, and now another abyss is waiting for him. Raise your head, child. When Chinzhou spoke, stand up a bit. Do you seem to be afraid of us? Su Lin quickly looked up, but his eyes kept glancing around, still afraid to look directly at a few people. Lao Wen, you scared the other child. What are you saying, Brother Shen? Why don't you come? Don't, I'll just let it go. It's not the money I spent, you should do it yourself. Su Lin listened to their conversation and learned from their names that neither of them had the surname Han. There was only one person left, so he must be Han Yi. Su Lin originally wanted to sneak a glance at Hua Jihan sitting on the other side of the sofa, but his gaze collided directly with that of the man. His dark green pupils, like wild beasts, frightened him and made him tremble all over. His heart beat faster and he was too anxious to open his eyes. This man, who looks so good, has such a hobby that I can't believe after staying here for a long time. Wen Yan listened to the intense heartbeat in his ear and withdrew his gaze from the field. Uncle Hua, you scared him, he said upon hearing the crisp childlike voice. Hua Jihan changed his face faster than flipping through a book. That's not a big deal. Little child, uncle, I never scare children. Really, it's even more real than the Loya pearls produced by the planet Ione. Wen Yan. She seems to understand the word, double standard, that Jingzhe once said. After listening to everyone's conversation, Su Lin grasped a key point. No one here has the surname Han. How many people did he look at? 2 amiable elderly people, a handsome young man, and a very beautiful little sister. He couldn't help but speak, don't you have someone surnamed Han? Why is your surname Han? Shen Yeru didn't react for a moment. You're a fool, Wen Qinzhou looked at Shen Yeru happily. I just said why this child is so nervous and scared when he enters the door. Listening to him say that, you wouldn't think there's the third young master from the Han family among us. Upon hearing Wen Qinzhou's words, Shen Yeru understood, isn't this the elegant room that the Han family kid often uses? Han Wei, the third young master of the Han family, is a well-known playboy, and the adults present are well aware of it. Harmful. Why do you feel uncomfortable all over after using his elegant room? Hua Jihan said half-jokingly, little child, uncle feels uncomfortable. Come and sit with me. Wen Qinzhou gave Hua Jihan a displeased look and said, every time I use it, I clean and disinfect it. It's clean. Hua Xiaoyu must have felt wrong. Wen Yan didn't directly participate in the argument between the two, but looked at Su Lin. Wen Qinzhou introduced her, this is your future warrior. It looks like he's not a few years older than you, so he should be able to get along well. Child, come here and sit here. I don't know where you heard this news from. Don't worry, we're not the Han family. Wen Qinzhou pointed to the empty sofa next to him. When Su Lin heard that someone not surnamed Han had bought him, he breathed a deep sigh of relief. Although he still felt constrained, he still listened to Wen Qinzhou's words and sat over. Happy New Year's Day. I just coded the text and didn't send it. I only sent it the next day, hee hee. End of this chapter.